Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another video. It is the game review. Everton 1, Tottenham Hotspur 1 at Goodison Park on Monday evening. Another game unbeaten for Sean Dyche's Everton side, making it 4 on the bounce now, of course, after those draws against Nottingham Forest and Chelsea, and of course the win against Brentford at Goodison. A last-minute rocket by Michael Keane, 2 sendings off, goal line clearance, a penalty. This game really did have it all, didn't it? As well as an air of disappointment for me as an Evertonian, and that disappointment doesn't necessarily come because of the way in which this game panned out or the fact that we only managed to get a point. It comes in the sense that we haven't got many games remaining now, and we certainly haven't got many games remaining at Goodison Park. And I personally, and I think a lot of Evertonians had targeted this one as one that we needed to really go out and win. you know, for many reasons, really. Tottenham are in a little bit of a state at the moment. Of course, Antonio Conte had left during the international break, meaning they were managerless. They were being taken over by caretaker managers. As well as the fact that it was a home game, as well as the fact that we just had a couple of draws on the bounce, one of which we really should have won, against Nottingham Forest, a couple of weeks ago. And, this one really felt for me, on Monday afternoon at 2-3 o'clock when I was looking ahead to this game, it really felt like one that I expected Everton to go out and win. It had sort of a similar feeling to Manchester United at home last season, or Newcastle at home last season, or Chelsea at home last season. A game that, you might not necessarily fancy us to win before it in terms of the quality difference between the two teams, but you just had a feeling within yourself that Everton would go out and win. And as I said, as well as that, the remaining home games between now and the end of the season are dwindling away, and we still are in need for me we still for me are in need of 3 wins and a couple of draws in order for us to guarantee Premier League survival. So there is a little bit of disappointment that we didn't manage to go out and win this game. I'm not by any sense of the imagination disappointed with the manager or with the players or with the effort or with the determination or with the results, in the sense of the context of the game and the fact that we were, down to 10 men for the majority of the second half an hour of the second half. And I know that Tottenham had a man sent off as well, but they had a man sent off with about 3 minutes to go before the final whistle, whereas we had to play the majority of the second half with 10 men. We'd conceded the penalty, we'd gone 1-0 down, all signs of things that in previous years with previous Everton teams under previous Everton managers, we would have had no chance of getting back into the game and getting anything out of the game, let alone a win. We wouldn't have gotten a point in previous years had we have gone down to 10 men and a goal down and certainly, conceding a penalty as well. So I think contextually, when you look at the context of the game and how it panned out, it was a really good point, and one that you sort of just have to take on the chin, and if we can go and get something at Old Trafford on Saturday afternoon, then of course this point is, it means a lot more if we can go and win at Old Trafford, which will of course be extremely difficult, not only because we're playing a really good Manchester United team, but also because we haven't won at Old Trafford in 10 years and we don't notoriously do very well here. But if we do go and win there, then that's 4 points out of Man United away and Tottenham at home, which is a fantastic return. If we can get a point there, then again, it's still a relatively decent return. But considering the circumstances of this game, considering as I said, the sending off and the penalty conceded, I thought the determination, I thought the battle, I thought the effort showed by the players, and also by the manager's determination to not lose this game was really, really impressive. But I'd be lying if I was to sit here and say I'm absolutely over the moon, I'm buzzing, I'm booming. It was a great result because I did leave the ground voiceless, and I did leave the ground, of course, buzzing, at the fact I'd just seen a Michael Keane 35-yard screamer. But I also left with, as I said, an air of disappointment that we hadn't managed to beat what, for me, is a Tottenham team that are really, really struggling at the moment. How they are in a position to fight for a Champions League place is beyond me, and they may well still finish within that top four. They'd have gone third, I think, if they'd have won on Monday night, which is baffling considering, their defence is absolutely horrendous. Their goalkeeper is absolutely horrendous. And, okay, they've got a really good attacking, options. And obviously we all know the quality of the likes of Harry Kane and Heung-min Son when he's on form, and Kuleveski, etc., etc. But, as I said, they're not in great form at the moment. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Everton are also, although we're in a bit of a decent run of form in the sense of that with a few games unbeaten, and as I said, we got a really good point at Stamford Bridge last time out and a big win against Brentford before that. We're still in a league position that, of course, comes with an immense amount of pressure. There is not many points separating, the bottom team, Southampton, and the team currently sitting in 12th position or 13th position. I mean, let me just get it up now, just so I can emphasise how tight this relegation battle is. Southampton currently sit bottom of the Premier League table on 23 points, and Crystal Palace currently sit in 12th with 30 points. So the difference between 12th and 11th is quite a big gap, 9 points between Crystal Palace and Chelsea, but there is only a 7-point gap between 12th position and 20th position. So that's 9 teams there that are separated by a 7-point gap. Everton are currently sitting 16th on 27 points. That's only 4-point gap from Southampton, sat rock bottom, and it is on the exact same point as Bournemouth, who are currently sat in the relegation zone. So that's where the little bit of disappointment leads in, that we didn't manage to go on and win that game. I do firmly believe, had we have kept 11 men on the pitch for the entirety of the game, we would have gone on to win it, because that would, of course, taken us to 29 points, which would have taken us above Leeds, I believe, below Leeds on goal difference, but above Wolves in 14th position, which of course would have been a big boost. And on the night, I think it would have taken us into 13th position on the night, because of course Leeds United have played since Monday. So yeah, it's incredibly tight, down the bottom of the league table, and every point matters, and that's why Michael Keane scoring a worldie with 2 minutes to go is a fantastic point for Everton. As I said, if we'd have been able to win the game and gained an even bigger advantage, that would have been great. But it just means that there's probably an away game coming up, be it Wolves, be it Leicester, that Everton are going to have to go out and win, and that is very possible, and that is very plausible considering we've got a couple of away games against sides that aren't in particularly good form at the moment. But we also have to take into consideration that Everton's away form has been shocking for the last 25 years. So, yeah, it will not be easy. It will not be easy, that's for sure. But I think once again, we saw a different side to this Everton team on Monday night. We saw resilience, we saw fight, we saw desire, we saw commitment, and we saw a side that I think is starting to build a real relationship with the fans. Even when we went down to 10 men, even when we went a goal down, there was never any sign of quit. There was never any sign of, giving up. There was never any sign of throwing the towel in. There was never any sign of, a complete capitulation. And that is massive, because we showed that under Frank Lampard at times, and I think it would be unfair to sit here and rewrite history and say that every time we went 1-0 down under Frank Lampard we completely capitulated, because there were times when we picked ourselves up and we zagged ourselves on, as seen in the game against Crystal Palace at Goodison Park last season. However, I think a lot of the times we showed that type of resilience and never give up mentality under Frank. It come hand in hand with the effort from the Evertonians. And I'm not by any sense of the imagination saying the effort from Evertonians isn't there this season. But what I'm saying is we, of course, aren't seeing the coach greetings at the moment because of the way in which Sean Dyche likes to work things. Sean Dyche has, I think, the players driving in their own personal cars, so they don't come in on a coach. So that means, of course, there isn't those coach greetings before the game, which, of course, there was under Frank Lampard. And we saw, for I think for pretty much the last 5 or 6 home games of the season, which would fall into the category, the time of year we're currently in at the moment. Every game was greeted with a coach greeting, and the players spoke quite candidly and quite emotionally about how much that helped them, and the manager spoke emotionally about how much that helped them, and the fans in the stadium were lively and were buzzing, and that worked hand in hand with, if we were to ever go a goal down, if we were to ever slip up a little bit, the performances would raise based upon that sort of atmosphere. That isn't quite the same this season because there isn't those coach greetings. And okay, the atmosphere at Goodison Park can still be absolutely fantastic. And that noise that was generated when Michael Keane absolutely, and I'm going to apologise for my language here to anybody watching with young children or anybody that gets offended by language. Please close your ears for the next 5 seconds. But when Michael Keane twatted that ball into the back of the net with 2 minutes to go, that noise, I don't think, can be compared to anything else on the planet. I don't think there's any other fan base in the world that can generate that sort of noise in that sort of moment. But it is very different to last season because, as I said, we're not having those coach greetings to generate that atmosphere in the first place. So I think a lot of that mentality of not giving up and picking yourselves back up, and even if you go 1-0 down, and even if you go a man down, and even if you are in facing times of adversity, I think a lot of that has to be credited to the manager now, and the manager's simply not accepting. The manager simply not accepting giving up, and not accepting defeat, and not accepting dropping your head, and not accepting being a goal down with 20 minutes, 30 minutes to go, and thinking that's game over. It's very, very, very clear and very evident that Sean Dyche isn't going to allow that to happen. And I said this on the instant match reaction thing, and I'll say it again here. One thing that was really, really, really notable for me on Monday night was the substitutions that the manager made. The manager made positive substitutions to try and go out and get something out of the game. But also, I watched Sean Dyche after Michael Keane had scored that goal, and there'd been a lot of managers there that would have thrown Yerry Mina on, maybe thrown another defensive midfielder on, and just said, right, 1-1, 2 minutes to go, sit back, defend, defend, defend. I looked at Sean Dyche when Tottenham had kicked off after Michael Keane's goal, and he's doing all of this. He's absolutely screaming at the players to get forward, to push, to try and have another opportunity, building that confidence within these players. And listen, you can tell that there are a number of players in this Everton side that you wouldn't have had anywhere near an Everton team prior to Sean Dyche's arrival that have improved immensely since he has come into the football club. Dwight McNeil is a fine example of that. Now, can Dwight McNeil improve still? Is Dwight McNeil a finished article? Are we sitting here saying, oh my God, Dwight McNeil is absolutely unbelievable, there's nothing he can do better? No, of course we're not, because he's still not scoring enough goals, he's still not being involved in front of goal enough, he's still got a lot that he can improve on and a lot that he can learn on. But what we're now seeing from Dwight McNeil is a player that I don't think there has been a single game that Sean Dyche has managed as the Everton manager that any Evertonian can sit here and say that Dwight McNeil hasn't given absolutely everything. He's given 110%. He's ran for everything. He's not stopped running until the game's finished or until he's come off. He's battled. He's threw himself into challenges. He's got back. He's defended. He's worked hard. He's got in people's faces. Now, okay, I'm not saying every single game he's played he's been unbelievable, because there's been a couple of games that we've lost and Dwight McNeil hasn't particularly played well. But there's not been a game that I can remember since Sean Dyche has come to the football club where we can sit here and say Dwight McNeil was lazy today, he didn't fancy it, he wasn't running around, he wasn't really giving everything, he didn't fancy the fight. Whereas there wasn't many games under Frank Lampard you could say that about Dwight McNeil. There wasn't many games you could sit here and say, oh my God, he fancied it today, Dwight McNeil, he battled, he worked, he ran for everything, he was in people's faces. That was the anomaly under Frank Lampard. You might get one of them performances in 10 games. Whereas with Sean Dyche, you're getting that every single week. Every week you're getting maximum effort. And it's not just from Dwight McNeil, it's from everybody. But I think it's so evident from Dwight McNeil because we weren't getting that previously. And we are now. We're getting a player who is battling for everything and is working for everything. Is he, an absolutely unbelievable world-class footballer? No. Is he the answer to every problem Everton have got? No, but he's not going to be that, whether or not he works immensely hard or whether or not he doesn't work immensely hard. But what he is he's useful when he works hard. And, I really, really like Dwight McNeil, and I think this season he's had a lot of criticism because of the price that he cost, and probably, unfairly, I think he's been targeted this season, if I'm being honest. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve any of it, and I'm not saying he's been unbelievable, and I'm not saying he deserves all the credit in the world. He's had some woeful games, and I've sat here and criticised him myself, but I just feel like he's received a little bit more than maybe other players who have got away with it a little bit. However, I think had Everton bloody hell, that's in there, a tongue twister, a recognised striker in the last 2 or 3 months, Dwight McNeil would have had a handful more assists than what he's currently got, because there's been multiple games where he's put 2, 3, 4, 5 really, really good crosses into the box, and they've not been met by anybody because Neil Maupay just isn't good enough to get on the end of them, or, Damari Gray just, isn't a natural striker, so he's not in those areas, or one of the midfielders isn't quite quick enough to it. There's been multiple times where Dwight McNeil has put balls into the box that somebody like a Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and again, I'm not going to bring the Dominic Calvert-Lewin conversation up because we spoke about him a couple of weeks ago, and if I'm being honest, I don't want to talk about him until I know he's fit and he's available to play for Everton. But using him as an example, if he was fit and available to play for Everton, I think he would have absolutely feasted on some of the deliveries that Dwight McNeil has put into the box since Sean Dyche has come into the football club. And as I said, it's not only him that's improved, but it's players like Dwight McNeil, Michael Keane, another one, who it's so evident how much the manager has impacted their improvements over the last couple of weeks and months. Michael Keane is a massive one. Look, we all know Michael Keane has still got a ricket in him. We all know Michael Keane has still got a mistake in him. We know that. And I don't think anything is going to change that. I really, really don't. And listen, Michael Keane made the mistake on Monday night, and if he hadn't have scored a 30-yard worldie at the end of the game, then we'd have lost this game, and we'd probably all be sitting here saying, again, it's another issue, but it's another error by Michael Keane. We can't afford to keep giving those errors away. But because of the confidence that Michael Keane has got, because of the confidence instilled in him by the manager, and by giving him game time, and by allowing him to play, and by allowing him to get a run in the team and build a relationship with James Tarkowski, he did have the confidence to hit that ball from 30-odd yards. And it's really interesting because, Michael Keane scored that goal, and he come out in his post-game interview and he said something along the lines of, I scored a couple of them a week in training, but it just never falls for me in a match day. So I'm glad that I've managed to get the opportunity to score one in a match day. And usually you listen to something like that and you go, oh yeah, great, everybody can score a worldie in training, etc., etc. But then Ben Godfrey put something on Instagram, which was, and again, I'm loosely translating this, but something along the lines of made up for Keno because he hits them like that every day in training, and I'm glad that one's finally got in. And then Neil Maupay done an interview saying that something along the lines of how technically good Michael Keane is with the ball at his feet and how he should have been a number 9 because he's very, very good in front of goal. And all of a sudden, you look at the Everton team and you look at the distinct lacking quality in attacking areas, because we have got, even though Dwight McNeil runs around and works hard, same with Alex Iwobi, same with Damari Gray, generally there is a massive lack of quality up front, And you listen to opposition players, you listen to, Everton players saying, oh yeah, Keno can't half hit a ball, he does it insane all the time, he's got that quality, he's got that skill. And I'm not saying Sean Dyche should do something as radical as put Michael Keane up front, because that's never, ever, ever going to happen. If we ever see that, it'll be for 15 minutes at the end of the game when, I don't know, one of the forwards has had to go off and we've got no other forward on the bench. You'll never see that because it's very, very radical, and if it doesn't work, then Dyche gets a massive amount of criticism for it. But what I'm saying is, if the ball falls to Michael Keane on the edge of the box, or he finds himself with a little bit of space, then there is absolutely no reason why he shouldn't hit that ball. Because that goal on Monday night was, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, the sweetest hit of a football I've seen from an Everton player in a long time. And I'm not just saying it because it's a goal that got us a point, and I'm not just saying it because it's the last goal we've seen and recency bias and all of that. I've watched that goal back countless amounts of times, as I'm sure everybody else has. And the way he hits it, and the trajectory of the ball, and the accuracy, and the power, and the placement, I've not quite seen a ball hit like that from an Everton player in years. And my point is if he's got that in his locker and you've got players coming out saying, yeah, he does that quite often, it's not a fluke, he can do that, he's got the ability to do that, Michael Keane. Then if the ball falls to Michael Keane on the edge of the box, have a go. Because we haven't got 5 or 6 forwards who are producing goals week in, week out, and who are producing quality week in, week out. And there mightn't be a better option. If the ball falls to Michael Keane on the edge of the box, there mightn't be a better option than for him to hit it. You know, alright, if you've got Romelu Lukaku or Erling Haaland or somebody else in the box and they've got a free pass on and you say, go ahead, pass it off to him because he's a goal scorer, he's a better option. Fine, I get it. We haven't got that. So, it's all about building confidence within these players so that they've got the confidence to have that shot. Does Michael Keane have that shot under Frank Lampard if he's playing in this game because Yerry Mina's out injured or because Connor Cody's hurt himself? No, he probably dilly-dallies with the ball on the edge of the box. He probably loses it and Tottenham probably go up and score a second. A little bit like he did at White Hart Lane last season, or he did at the Etihad a couple of seasons ago. But that ball's fallen to him. He's had the confidence because he's had a couple of games on the bounce, or a few games on the bounce running the team, and he's done relatively okay. He's made a couple of mistakes, yes, but he's done relatively okay. He's clearly getting that confidence fed into him by the manager. He's clearly getting that confidence fed into him by his teammates, and we know, and we've known this for the last 4 or 5 years that he's been an Everton player. Michael Keane is a confidence player. And if Michael Keane has got confidence, then he can perform. But on the flip side, if Michael Keane isn't confident, he can be absolutely horrendous. But what we saw was a confident Michael Keane think, no, do you know what? I am going to put my foot through this. And there's absolutely no reason why he shouldn't do that. Especially if he's got the ability. In fact, we should be championing that, and we should be encouraging players that have clearly got that ability to do that in those moments. It's a fantastic finish. As I said, I said it in the instant match reaction, it was very Michael Keane-centric, this game, wasn't it? He gave away the penalty, he cleared one off the line, he nearly had his leg broken by Lucas Moura, he got up, he scored a worldie. It was Michael Keane, all over, and he deserves it because, although he did give away the penalty, and as I said, we know he's got that type of mistake in him because he always has done, and he probably always will do. He picked himself up. He didn't let his head drop. He didn't let his confidence drop. He didn't, sulk. He didn't completely capitulate like he has done in previous years under previous managers. He picked himself up. He went again, and he got what he deserved, and that was an emphatic equaliser, which, as I said, made up for the mistake he'd made earlier in the game. And I think that is the sort of, I think that really does epitomise what Sean Dyche is doing at the moment. It's that there will be times of adversity under Sean Dyche. We will lose games. Players will make mistakes because there's absolutely no hiding that there is a distinct lack of quality in this team. But one thing I said, and one thing a lot of Evertonians said when Dyche come in, was Dyche isn't going to all of a sudden turn these players into world-class players because they're not. We all know there's a massive lack of quality. But the question is, was Frank Lampard getting the most, and Rafa Benitez before him, getting the most out of this current playing squad? And if not, can Sean Dyche get the most out of this playing squad? And that's not just necessarily working hard. That's not just necessarily giving it 110%. That's not just necessarily, players coming out and winning games every week. That's little things like that. Building confidence within players to the point where their biggest positive points of their game, i.e. Michael Keane, one of Michael Keane's biggest positives is clearly that he can hit a ball well. You bring that out of them and you nullify the negatives. And that's what Sean Dyche is doing really, really well at Everton at the moment. And that was on show again on Monday night. I thought the first half performance was very competitive, very, very competitive, and yes, it was a good Everton performance, and probably if you're a Spurs fan, you would say it wasn't a great Spurs performance. But if you were a neutral watching, if you didn't watch the Premier League, if you weren't massively interested in football, and you watched that first half, and you said this is a game between two teams, one of them is currently sitting third in the Premier League or currently sitting fourth in the Premier League and could potentially go third if they win today. And one of them is, dangerously close to the relegation zone and could potentially go down this season. I don't think you'd have been able to decide which was which. And I think if you had to decide, you would have probably edged on Everton being the team at the top of the table. It was that even of a first half. Everton had a couple of half opportunities. Keane had an opportunity in the first half that, had he have scored, would have been an absolute worldie. A ball come in, a cross come in, and he sort of chested it, didn't he? Down and volleyed it, and he did put it about 4 yards over the bar. But as I said, had he have had that have gone in, it would have been another worldie. We had another couple of opportunities. DYCHE had one, which he really, really should do better with, and for me, there's no real excuse for him to have not done better with that. And Tottenham had a couple of chances. Harry Kane had one which he had wide. They had one which was off the line, of course, by Michael Keane. It was a fairly even first half of football that, although there wasn't an awful lot happening in, as I said, it was even, and it was one that I think we could take a lot of positives from and a lot of confidence from. But it was always that case of, can we get the goal and then defend well enough to see this out? Because I feel like at the moment, between now and the end of the season, I don't think we're going to see many Everton games that have more than 2 goals in them. And by that, what I mean is, I know, we do 2-2 with Chelsea, and I know that we do 2-2 with Forest, and we're capable of scoring a couple of goals if we need to. But what I'm saying is, I don't think we're going to see many games that are a scoreline different to 1-0 to Everton, 1-1, or 1-0 to the opposition. Because defensively, we seem really, really solid at the moment, and we're not particularly leaking a lot, albeit we're still making individual mistakes that are leading to goals that need to be cut out, like we did against Chelsea. That's 2 penalties now in 2 consecutive games we've given away, and 2 penalties that are massively, massively avoidable as well. And, as we saw with the Brentford game, as we saw with the Leeds game, we go 1-0 up, and we defend well enough to see that game out. So, naturally, you're sitting there watching the first half on Monday night, and you're thinking, can we be the team to score? And if we are the team to score, can we then sit back and, defend to the, well enough to the point where we see the game out and we get a big 3 points? I thought we were really, really impressive for the opening 20 minutes. I thought for the opening 25 minutes, we were lively. I thought we worked hard. I thought we battled. I thought the intensity was there. I thought the energy was there. I thought the fight was there. I thought we were really the team on top. And okay, Tottenham way of being comfortable in possession, and they may have had a couple of opportunities that they would probably say they should have done better with. And okay, there were a couple of moments where Perisic or Porro on the wings were left with a little bit too much space because Coleman and Godfrey had decided to give them too much space. But I don't think Everton were put under a massive amount of pressure in that first half. I don't think Jordan Pickford was put under a massive amount of pressure in that first half. I don't think there was a lot that Everton had to worry about. Certainly in that first 20-25 minutes. I thought we slowed down a little bit in the final 10-15 minutes towards the first half. Towards the end of the first half. And listen, it was a game. It was a very even game between two teams that weren't particularly great on the day. That's for sure. It wasn't a massively. It was mad because, don't get me wrong, I don't think it was a boring game. I don't think it was a non-entertaining game. It had everything. It had 2 red cards, it had a penalty, it had a last-minute screamer, it had all of that. But there was certainly moments in that last 10, 15 minutes of the first half where I was sitting there thinking, this is a bit tit for tat. We can't find a breakthrough. They can't find a breakthrough. Again, the midfield battle is there. I thought the midfield was very good for the opening 25 minutes. Then I thought it slowed down for the remainder of the first half, and then I thought in the second half our midfield was nowhere near as involved as it should have been. But again, it was very, as I said, sort of tit for tat in those moments. And one thing that became quite evident for me was that we were really, really, really lacking that striker. I personally just don't think that Damari Gray, he certainly can't play with his back away from goal. Maybe as a striker that gets the ball fed into him, maybe, and it'll be really interesting to see how Sean Dyche sets up against Manchester United at the weekend. Sean Dyche's press conference is in a couple of hours at the time of recording this video. It'll be interesting to see how he sets up, whether he puts James Garner in, whether he puts Tom Davies in, how he little voice break there, how he sets that forward position up, because I just think with his back towards goal, I just don't think Damari Gray is effective whatsoever, and I don't think he was effective at all on Monday night. Nothing would stick with him. He couldn't hold anything up. It was just a really, really abject performance, I thought, from Damari Gray. Don't get me wrong, he worked hard, he battled, he got in people's faces, but I just think it was a really, really poor performance. So there was that. In the first half, there was that element of nothing is quite sticking. We're working hard, we're battling, but nothing is quite sticking. Similarly for them, nothing's quite sticking. And we go in at half-time, 0-0, and you're thinking, right, okay. I remember sitting there and thinking, firstly, I thought, wow, it's absolutely fucking freezing. Because it wasn't that cold when I'd left mine to go to the game, but it was absolutely freezing at half-time. And secondly, I remember thinking, this is going to be tight. This isn't going to be a 2-3-0. This isn't going to be a whitewash. This is going to be a really, really, really tight game. And we come out for the second half. Again, we're battling. Again, we're working hard. And then, the England captain, the role model, the player that, young boys and girls in this country should be growing up, looking up to and admiring to be like, goes and proves that he's nothing but an absolute knobhead. And whilst he is an incredibly talented footballer, and whilst he is his ability and his goal scoring ability is undoubted, he is an absolute idiot. And I'm not saying that because of the challenge, by the way. I think Abdoulaye Doucouré is in the wrong, and I think it's a sending off. But what I find really, really interesting is I heard Ian Wright had come out over the last couple of days and said something along the lines of Harry Kane isn't in the wrong, because if Harry Kane doesn't go down and roll around, then Abdoulaye Doucouré doesn't get sent off, and then Harry Kane isn't doing his job for his teammates. Okay, that's fine. What I would say to that, and to Ian Wright, who I generally like, by the way, and think is a really, really good pundit, and think a lot of his opinions are spot on. What I would say to that is, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that the only reason people are saying that, and the only reason people are defending Harry Kane's actions, is because he is the England captain. That is it. And I also think that whilst it was a sending off, and whilst you can't raise your hand to an opposition player, I get all of that. I've seen those not given. And I've seen those not given twice in the last year. Naby Keita raised his arm to, I think it was Alan's face in the last Merseyside derby, and Sadio Mane did it to Mason Holgate, or vice versa. Sadio Mane and Naby Keita both raised their arm into the face and pushed the face of Alan and Mason Holgate in the last Merseyside derby, or the Merseyside derby last year. Neither was given, because neither was deemed enough contact for a sending off to be given. So that completely removes the point of, if you raise your hand in any circumstance, it's a sending off. Bollocks, because there's 2 examples I've just given you where they weren't sendings off because the referee and the VAR decided there wasn't enough contact. Let me flip this on its head. What type of message does it send out if the England captain, the role model for young girls and boys around this country to want to grow up to be like, throws himself on the floor, rolls around like an absolute petulant child, and nothing comes of that? The opposition player doesn't get sent off, or a penalty isn't given, or a decision isn't made. What message does that send? That sends the message that the England captain is a cheat. The England captain is trying to jeopardise opposition players, trying to get opposition players sent off, trying to, force the referee into making a certain decision. And that's not the look that the FA want to give for the England captain. That's not the look that, that the Premier League want to give for one of another player who is deemed a really, really nice bloke and dead good and this, that and the other. He's not. He's a knobhead. He's an absolute knobhead. It's as simple as that. I've got no time for the fella, and he's one of the many reasons why I despise the England national team and why I do not support the England national team, because he is an absolute embarrassment. And he's an embarrassment whether he's wearing an England shirt, and he's an embarrassment whether he's wearing a Tottenham shirt, and it's as simple as that. And he embarrassed himself again. Was it silly by Abdoulaye Doucouré? Absolutely. And Abdoulaye Doucouré deserves to be given criticism for that, because of the situation Everton are in, and because that potentially jeopardised that game for us. He shouldn't have raised his hand. He should have kept his calm. But what I would also like to say to David Coote and the other dickhead officials that may or may not see this video is, interestingly enough, Harry Kane received a yellow card for volleying Abdoulaye Doucouré after the whistle had been blown, which led to the situation in which Abdoulaye Doucouré raised his hand, which led to the situation of Harry Kane going down like an absolute petulant child. Firstly, if that isn't the England captain volleying out at an opposition player, then it's a sending off, because the whistle had already been blown and he volleyed out at him. Secondly, Harry Kane was on a yellow card and then committed 2 or 3 fouls after that, and then went over to try and protest Lucas Moura's blatant red card. Why was he not sent off? I'll tell you why. Because he's the England captain, and the moment they send off the England captain, it paints a bad message, and it shows the FA and the Premier League in a really, really bad light. So he's never getting sent off, Harry Kane. No matter what he does, he is never getting sent off. He's protected, and he has this mentality of, I can do what I like because I'm the England captain. He's an idiot, and I can't stand the fella. I absolutely despise him. Having said that, it was silly by Abdoulaye Doucouré. He shouldn't have done it, he jeopardised what could have, what could have been a devastating loss for Everton. Although it was a massive overreaction by Keane, and he's embarrassed himself there. He's made himself look a proper idiot, proper idiot. Anyway, the sending off's given. Harry Kane gets away with it because he's the England captain, and it gets bad. Goes from bad to worse for Everton, doesn't it? 10 minutes later, we give away the penalty. Michael Keane sticks a foot out again. If you stick a foot out in the box and you don't make absolute contact with the ball, then that is always going to be given as a penalty. 11 times out of 10, that is getting given. I haven't seen the penalty back. I don't think there's much contact. And in fact, I know there's not much contact because it's not really being highlighted an awful lot by the media, which to me says that it's probably a little bit, a little bit, maybe, I don't want to say fortunate, but certainly a lack of contact. But Kane steps up, takes the penalty, buries it, and all of a sudden you're sitting thinking, right, we're 1-0 down, we're down to 10 men, there's half an hour to go. This is going to go one of two ways. We're either going to absolutely capitulate, drop our heads, and Tottenham are going to go and score a second and a third, and it be a convincing victory in the end, or we're going to show that resilience, we're going to show that battle, we're going to show that determination, and we're going to get back into this game. And that's exactly what we did. For 20 minutes after that, Everton were once again the better team. Tottenham didn't really have another opportunity to go 2-0 up. Again, they had a couple of moments where they put crosses in or they swung balls in, and we managed to defend them well, but they didn't really have another clear opportunity to go 2-0 up. Everton continued to press, Everton continued to battle, Everton continued to get in the face of Tottenham, worked the ball hard. Dwight McNeil, upped his percentages, and worked 10 times harder. You know, Damari Gray was running around more. The manager made a couple of substitutions. He put Ellis Sims on. He put Tom Davis on. He, of course, put Vitaly Milenko on later in the game as well. James Garner come on. And we pushed, and we pushed, and we pushed, and we pushed. And we believed that even down to 10 men, even a goal down against a side that at the time was sitting third in the Premier League, we believed that we could get something out of that game. And we pushed. Lucas Moura comes on for Tottenham. Within 2 minutes, he makes one of the worst challenges I've ever seen in my life. He gets sent straight back off. Again, had David Coote not sent Abdoulaye Doucouré off, I'm not convinced he'd have sent Lucas Moura off, but he waited until it was 4 minutes to go in the game. He sent Lucas Moura off. Again, Harry Kane goes over and protests that, which just shows how much of an idiot he is. He's trying to protest what was a disgraceful challenge. Just not a nice bloke whatsoever. Not a nice fella. Anyway, Lucas Moura gets sent off, and all of a sudden, for the last 5 minutes, it's 10 versus 10. That gives the crowd a lift. That gives the players a lift. You know, Ben Godfrey gets the ball. He passes it in. Michael Keane wanders into a position of threat. And as I said, I firmly believe that because of the confidence put in him by the manager, because of the fact he's had a run of games, because of the fact that he's created a partnership with James Tarkowski, who, by the way, was absolutely phenomenal on Monday night. He had the confidence to hit it, and boy did he hit it. An absolute worldy and unbelievable strike. A moment that Michael Keane very, 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 very certainly deserved. We get the goal, and then we push again. You know, we've equalised, but we're pushing again for another. With a couple of half-decent crosses put in, nothing come of it. The final whistle's blown, and it's a 1-1 draw. And as I said, despite the fact that before the game, I would have probably been slightly disappointed if you'd have said this game will end 1-1, because of the fact that we need wins, and it's a home game, and we need to take advantage of these home games. On the context of the situation, it was a good result and it was a good performance, and a much deserved point. By the way, Tottenham doesn't deserve anything else out of that game. And now we have to take it and look forward and go again against Manchester United at the weekend. It'll be a difficult game. It'll be incredibly tough, but there's no reason why we can't get anything out of this game. Absolutely no reason. And hopefully the players go into it with confidence and with belief that they can get something out of this game. But yeah, there you go. As I said, a good performance, and all things considered, a good result in the end. You know, interesting to see what the manager will say in terms of the decision of who replaces Abdoulaye Doucouré, and we'll wait and see during his press conference in the next couple of hours. But that's going to do it. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. The game preview to the Man United game will be up as well very soon, so don't forget to look out for that one. Massive thank you to all of you for watching. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. It does only take a second, and as I said, if you have enjoyed this one, please do leave it a like. But until then, massive thank you all for watching. Up the toffees, and yeah, see you later.